Welcome to the second episode of Simon and the Word. I'm Simon. This is the Word. We're in Genesis chapter 4 and we're moving right along. Walk with me, y'all. Genesis chapter 4. Adam and Eve had a son. Then Eve said, I'll name him Cain because I got him with the help of the Lord. Later she had another son and named him Abel. Okay, so we see Eve's first two sons, Cain and then Abel. Abel became a sheep farmer, but Cain farmed the land. See, so one worked with animals, one worked with the land. One day Cain gave part of his harvest to the Lord, and Abel also gave an offering to the Lord. He killed the firstborn lamb from one of his sheep and gave the Lord the best parts of it. The Lord was pleased with Abel and his offering, but not with Cain and his offering. This made Cain so angry that he could not hide his feelings. The Lord said to Cain, What's wrong with you? Why do you have such an angry look on your face? If you had done the right thing, you would be smiling. But you did the wrong thing, and now sin is waiting to attack you like a lion. You hear what he already said? Now, these are the first human beings on earth, right? They did the wrong thing, and because of that, what? Sin is waiting to attack you like a lion. Sin wants to destroy you, but don't let it. You hear what God spoke to the very first human beings? He's speaking to you and me today. Listen to what he said. He said, sin wants to destroy you, but don't let it. Them drugs, whatever it is, that really promiscuous lifestyle, you know what I mean? That addiction, it wants to destroy you, but don't let it. We're going to find out, right? We're going to find out. Cain said to his brother Abel, let's go for a walk. And when they were out in the field, Cain killed him. Afterwards, the Lord asked Cain, where is Abel? How should I know, he answered. Am I supposed to look after my brother? That's that line, am I my brother's keeper? Right? Then the Lord said, why have you done this terrible thing? You killed your own brother. And his blood flowed onto the ground. Now his blood is calling out for me to punish you. You hear that? These are things that happen in the spiritual that we're not aware of in the physical. You know, when you murder somebody and their blood goes into the ground, do you know that that blood calls out to God for vengeance? And you think God ignores that blood? Nuh-uh, he sure does not. Now his blood is calling out for me to punish you, he says, and so I'll put you under a curse. Because you killed Abel and made his blood run out on the ground, you will never be able to farm the land again. If you try to farm the land, it won't produce anything for you. From now on, you'll be without a home and you'll spend the rest of your life wandering from place to place. This punishment is too hard, Cain said. You're making me leave my home and live far away from you. I will have to wander about without a home and just anyone could kill me. No, the Lord answered. Anyone who kills you will be punished 7 times worse than I am punishing you. So the Lord put a mark on Cain to warn everyone not to kill him. But Cain had to go far from the Lord and live in the land of wandering, which is east of Eden. Man, so we see that Cain killed his brother Abel, right? And God punished him for it. But even in that punishment, God had mercy on him. He had mercy on him, right? He sent him away. He said, anything you do to work the land is not going to produce anything because I'm cursing you, he said. But I'm not going to let anyone kill you. I'm not going to let anyone kill you. Right? He had mercy on him. For what reason? Let's find out. Later, Cain and his wife had a son named Enoch. Oh, maybe that's why. Because because of his offspring, God had mercy on him because of who was going to come out of his loins. Later, Cain and his wife had a son named Enoch. At the time, Cain was building a town, and so he named it Enoch after his son. Then Enoch had a son named Irad, who had a son named Mehujael. Now, I might be butchering these names, okay? So anybody who's out there who knows how to say these names better than me, you please got to be patient with me. Okay, then Enoch had a son named Irad, who had a son named Mehujael, who had a son named Methusael, who had a son named Lamech. Lamech married Adah, then Zillah. Lamech and Adah had 2 sons, Jabal and Jubal. Their son Jabal was the first to live in tents and to raise sheep. and goats. Okay, so we're looking at the first human beings here, and we're looking at the ancestry of human civilization here on Earth. Okay, a lot of people and scientists today will argue that the Earth is millions of years old. Other scientists will argue that no, it's only thousands of years old. And so when you go into this record, there's a lot of evidence to say that maybe it's a little bit younger than what we think. But I digress, and that's not the point of what we're doing here today. Okay, so let's look at what's happening here. Jubal, his brother, was the first to play harps and flutes. Lamech and Zillah had a son named Tubal-Cain, who made tools out of bronze and iron. Okay, they also had a daughter whose name was Naamah. One day Lamech said to his two wives, "A young man wounded me, and I killed him. Anyone who tries to get even with me will be punished 10 times more than anyone who tries to get even with Cain." That's interesting, right? So Lamech, right, who is probably like a grandson, I believe, of Cain, he killed somebody because he was wounded by that person, supposedly. And he said, anyone who tries to get even with me will be punished 10 times more than anyone who tries to get even with Cain. So he tried to take that curse that God put on anybody who tries to hurt Cain and try to claim it for himself. I don't know if it worked or not. Let's find out. Adam and his wife had another son. They named him Seth because they said, God has given us a son to take the place of Abel, who was killed by his brother Cain. Later, Seth had a son named Enosh. About this time, people started worshiping the Lord. Wow. So God started winning worshipers for himself at this time already, because you see that after Adam and Eve had fallen and they got pushed out of Eden and they started having kids and descendants, those descendants didn't necessarily know who God was. Okay, they had to be taught who he was, right? And maybe they were, maybe they weren't. But we know that at about the time of Enosh, about this time, people started worshiping the Lord. Okay. Chapter 5, Genesis chapter 5. We're 7 minutes in, about halfway. Let's see what's going on. God created men and women to be like himself. That's a statement right there, right? God created men and women to be like himself. He created you and me to be like him, to be like God. Isn't that amazing? And you'll see that as we go through this, you, oh man, you, oh woman, are meant to shine like the stars, to be just like God himself. And this body that we have, this is a temporary one. It's a pattern after the eternal one that we're going to get, right? It's going to shine. It's going to shine. It's going to shine. Keep that in mind. God created men and women to be like himself. He gave them blessing and called them human beings. This is a list of the descendants of Adam, the first man. Okay, we're about to go through Adam's children, and the first people to be on this planet are your ancestors and my ancestors, which is a trip because we all come from the same people. If you go back far enough, we are literally all brothers and sisters. Really, brothers and sisters. One blood, for real. It's right here. He gave them his blessing and called them human beings. This is a list of the descendants of Adam, the first man. When Adam was 130, you hear that? He was 130 years old. So if you're 40, 50, 60, you ain't found a wife yet, don't worry. Adam was 130 before, you feel me, he had his first son. He had a son who was just like him, and he named him Seth. Adam had more children and died at the age of 930 years old. So, man, if you're 60, 70, 80, 90 years old and you say, I'm old, or somebody tries to call you old, no, you're not. No, you're not. Adam had more children and died at the age of 930. Can you believe that? When Seth was 105, he had a son named Enosh. Seth had more children and died at the age of 912. When Enosh was 90, he had a son named Kenan. Enosh had more children and died at the age of 905. When Kenan was 70, he had a son named Mahalalel. Kenan had more children and died at the age of 910. So you see, they're up there in their age. The original human beings were created perfect. And without that sin, they wouldn't even have had to die at all, period. But sin crept in and it started doing its thing. And by 900, it started taking people down about that age. When Mahalalel was 65, he had a son named Jared. Mahalalel had more children and died at the age of 895. When Jared was 162, he had a son named Enoch. Jared had more children and died at the age of 962. When Enoch was 65, he had a son named Methuselah. And during the next 300 years, he had more children. Enoch truly loved God, and God took him away at the age of 365. When Methuselah was 187, he had a son named Lamech. Methuselah had more children and died at the age of 969. When Lamech was 182, he had a son named Lamech after himself. I'll name him Noah. Oh, I'm sorry. This is Lamech's son, Noah. We all know who Noah is, right? If you don't, we're going to find out. When Lamech was 182, he had a son. Lamech said, I'll name him Noah because he will give us comfort as we struggle hard to make a living on this land that the Lord has put a curse under. Lamech had more children and died at the age of 777. After Noah was 500 years old, he had 3 sons and named them Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Okay, so we see Lamech and he had a son named Noah. Okay, Noah had 3 sons. All right, now you're going to see later on that all the nations that are alive today, they all trace back to one of these 3 sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. All right, chapter 6, Genesis chapter 6. Walk with me, people. More and more people were born until finally they spread all over the earth. Some of their daughters were so beautiful that supernatural beings came down and married the ones they wanted. You hear that? Yes, it did happen. It says it right here. Some of their daughters were so beautiful that supernatural beings came down and married the ones they wanted. Now, this is the contemporary English version. When you look at the New King James Version, or you look at the New International Version, there are different words that it'll use for supernatural beings. Some will say angels, some will say God's sons, but these were definitely spirits. Spirits, okay? Angels, fallen angels, call them what you want. These were spirits that came from heaven down to earth, and they mated with man, okay? Then the Lord said, I won't let my life-giving breath remain in anyone forever. No one will live for more than 120 years. The children of the supernatural beings who had married these women became famous heroes and warriors. You hear that? The children of the supernatural beings who had married these women became famous heroes and warriors. They were called Nephilim and lived on the earth at the time and even later. And even later. Said and even later. Okay, so yes, Nephilim, they're real. It's talked about right here. And what are they? They're half human, half angel. Okay, this is where you get, in many cases, your stories of superheroes, right? Or gods, right? This is where those stories originate, of gods in the heavens, right? It's these men and women who were born by supernatural means, okay? The Lord saw how bad the people on earth were, and that everything they thought and planned was evil. He was very sorry that he had made them, and he said, I'll destroy every living creature on earth. I'll wipe out people, animals, birds, and reptiles. I'm sorry I ever made them. But the Lord was pleased with Noah, and this is the story about him. Noah was the only person who lived right and obeyed God. He had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. God knew that everyone was terribly cruel and violent, so he told Noah, cruelty and violence have spread everywhere. Now I'm going to destroy the whole earth and all its people. Get some good lumber and build a boat. Put rooms in it and cover it with tar inside and out. Make it 450 feet long, 75 feet wide and 45 feet high. Build a roof on the boat and leave a space of about 18 inches between the roof and the sides. Make the boat 3 stories high and put a door on one side. I'm going to send a flood that will destroy everything that breathes. Nothing will be left alive. But I solemnly promise that you, your wife, your sons, and your daughters-in-law will be kept safe in the boat. Bring into the boat with you a male and a female of every kind of animal and bird, as well as a male and a female of every reptile. I don't want them to be destroyed. Store up enough food, both for yourself and for them. Noah did everything the Lord told him to do. So we're right past the 15-minute mark, almost at 16 minutes. So we're going to leave it right there for this episode. And I'll see you guys back at episode number 3.